step into the shadowy world of Minjin Yang, a cunning Chinese intelligence officer turned mastermind of the most audacious car theft ring ever to hit the streets of New York City. In the neon-lit labyrinth of the 1990s metropolis, Yang and his crew orchestrated a symphony of heists, snatching up luxury vehicles with the finesse of seasoned magicians. Picture this: sleek Ferraris, lavish Lamborghinis, and majestic Bentleys vanishing into thin air, leaving nothing but a mystifying void. In a city pulsating with the wealth of millionaires and billionaires, every corner became a potential treasure trove for Yang's band of thieves. In 1999, there was a wave of luxury car thefts in New York City, with an astonishing 48 high-end cars disappearing in less than a month. Yet, unlike typical thefts where clues linger like breadcrumbs, Yang's operation left investigators scratching their heads in disbelief. Not a whisper of evidence, not a single trace. As authorities scrambled to unravel the enigma, suspicions turned to the Brooklyn port, a potential hub for exporting the stolen treasures overseas. But despite surveillance efforts worthy of a Hollywood thriller, the elusive syndicate remained one step ahead, shrouded in secrecy. Little did the investigators know, they were tangling with a maestro of deception. Behind the curtain of shadows stood Yang, a former military strategist turned modern-day outlaw. By 1999, his empire had amassed a staggering $40 million fortune, a testament to his unparalleled cunning and audacity. With each stolen car, he etched his name into the annals of criminal legend, leaving a legacy of intrigue and disbelief in his wake. But how did Minjin Yang manage to lead such a professional operation? To find out, we must delve into his past and understand his journey from his days as an intelligence officer in the Chinese army. After Minjin was discharged from the intelligence service in 1990, he moved to Shanghai. With its neon-lit skyline and bustling streets, Shanghai beckoned like a siren's call, promising a new chapter in his enigmatic saga. Shanghai boasted a large number of wealthy businessmen. Naturally, there was a high demand for luxury cars in the city. However, these cars were too expensive or not readily available in China, as luxury brands from around the world did not have dealerships there. Seeing an opportunity, Minjin reached out to mafia gangs in Shanghai and proposed a deal. He explained his background as a former intelligence officer with expertise in smuggling and export. He offered to supply luxury cars from abroad for resale through their network. The gang leader was particularly drawn to the proposal, especially considering the exorbitant prices of cars in China. With Minjin's plan, they could import vehicles valued at $100,000 and turn around to sell them for a cool $200,000. What sweetened the deal even further was the fact that since the cars were to be stolen, the actual cost to them would be next to nothing compared to the hefty price tags of these vehicles.
He was able to convince people in China that he could bring them vehicles door to door in 6 weeks, which, if you think about it, is about the time it takes to order a new car.
Minjin and the gang leader shook hands on a lucrative pact, divvying up the spoils with a 40-60 split. Alongside this agreement, the gang leader furnished the essential seed money to kickstart their venture. With a hefty $500,000 investment in hand, Minjin embarked on his ambitious endeavor, setting his sights squarely on the bustling streets of New York City. Yang believed it was the perfect place to carry out their operation, so he took the $500,000 and traveled to New York to start his project there. Right from the start, Minjin leveraged the skills honed through his military and intelligence background. Adopting the guise of an immigrant named Kenny, he slipped into America under the cloak of a fabricated identity. In a nation built on the dreams of immigrants, his ruse didn't raise eyebrows. It merely blended seamlessly into the tapestry of countless other stories of newcomers striving to carve out a place for themselves in the land of opportunity. Minjin's initial goal was to blend in with society, to make people feel like he was one of them, an ordinary person who didn't raise suspicion. He drove an old Nissan Altima. He never wanted to show that he was someone with money or someone special. From the outset, Minjin enlisted the aid of his trusted confidant, Chow, his right-hand man. Their primary objective? Securing a facility to serve as their operations hub for storing and preparing the cars destined for China. Yet, the chosen warehouse had to meet stringent criteria. It had to be secluded, far from the prying eyes of law enforcement, nestled in a tranquil locale with minimal criminal activity, essentially a sanctuary that wouldn't arouse suspicion. Such a haven proved elusive in the gritty streets of New York, notorious for its high crime rates. After an exhaustive search spanning weeks, Minjin and Chow finally stumbled upon the ideal warehouse. Securing the premises, they established a phantom company, a mere facade with no tangible operations. This strategic move ensured that if scrutiny ever fell upon the company, it wouldn't lead back to Minjin. By maintaining this buffer, he shielded himself from potential fallout, ensuring his protection even in the face of unforeseen adversity. To kickstart the operation, Minjin needed to assemble a team he could trust implicitly. So, he recruited Chinese assistants who would work directly with him at the warehouse. Having everyone around him be Chinese ensured trust and loyalty. Their first task was camouflaging the warehouse as a food storage facility. They brought in crates and boxes of food items, strategically placing them at the forefront of the warehouse. This facade would mislead anyone who glanced at the warehouse, making them believe it was solely a food storage facility, diverting attention away from the cars entirely. Most of the food items they brought in were canned or dry, as they have a long shelf life. Next, they installed a surveillance system and cameras around the warehouse building, monitoring every street corner. With these preparations complete, a portion of the warehouse was now ready. They were now prepared for the next step: car theft. By the way, Minjin didn't have any experience in stealing cars, and he wanted to avoid involving himself directly in the theft operations. He didn't want to go out and steal cars himself. His idea was to find someone experienced in the field and have them work for him. So, he started visiting garages and attending car auctions, getting to know people in the industry. After a while, he found the person he was looking for: Dean, a professional car thief. Yang encountered Dean at an auction for salvaged vehicles, those irreparably damaged in accidents and deemed unsalvageable. They struck up a conversation, and Yang proposed employing Dean to oversee the theft operations, ensuring Dean would handle the thefts directly, either by himself or by hiring others to work under him. As for Yang, he kept his distance from the thieves, merely overseeing operations from afar, maintaining a safe distance from the illicit activities. Dean had a trusted ally in the underworld, a skilled car thief named Mario Lopez, whose expertise surpassed even Dean's.
Mario was capable of stealing a car at any time, at any place, and he did.
So, when Minjin pitched his proposal to Dean, Mario was the first person who came to mind. Dean approached Mario, laying out the plan. "I've found a buyer for any car we can steal, and he's reliable." For car thieves, finding a buyer willing to purchase stolen vehicles is akin to striking gold. It's often the most challenging aspect of the trade. Thus, the offer Minjin presented was too lucrative to resist. Mario, without hesitation, declared, "Count me in." Like Dean, Mario didn't work alone. While he handled the technical aspects of car theft, cracking open the vehicle, disabling security systems, and priming it for the heist, he enlisted the help of a partner to carry out the actual theft and transport the car to a secure location. So now, we have a chain of people. Yang is at the top of this chain and Dean is below him. Under Dean comes Mario, and under Mario's management, a group of thieves handles the simple tasks that don't require much intelligence or skill. After the car is stolen, Yang's warehouse workers, all Chinese or at least Asian, take care of it. Yang trusts them completely. This way, Yang isolates himself from the dirty work. He doesn't steal cars with his own hands. He lets those below him handle it. So, no one knows his identity or what he looks like except for his closest assistants. This way, he protects himself as much as possible. He learned all these things from his experience as a former intelligence agent in the army. When the plan became clear and the organization's structure and work method were established, it was time to move on to implementing the theft operations. Minjin instructed Dean to start the theft operations and told him to target specific types of cars, all of them luxury cars. Dean then got his friend Mario, who began to activate the network of thieves under him. Their targets were places frequented by the affluent: high-end malls, opulent residential streets lined with extravagant mansions, and occasionally even paid parking lots. The success of the theft operation hinged entirely on Mario's unparalleled expertise. He was a virtuoso in the art of car theft, able to snatch any vehicle effortlessly. Upon identifying the perfect car, Mario approached it with finesse, avoiding breaking the lock to prevent triggering the car's computer shutdown. Instead, he shattered the window glass, slipping into the vehicle through the opening. Always equipped with his trusty laptop, Mario's technological prowess was unmatched. He intimately understood the intricacies of the car's security systems, effortlessly manipulating its programming to his advantage. With deft precision, he swiftly reprogrammed the car's system, allowing it to recognize and start with a copied regular key, bypassing the need for the original. Mario's mastery was such that he could complete the entire process in under a minute, and his proficiency in manipulating the programming of luxury vehicles reached unparalleled heights. Once he finished his work on the car, he would disable all its security systems and one of his followers would take it. After one of Mario's assistants took the car, he would take it to a fancy place, like a parking lot in an upscale neighborhood. He would park the stolen cars among the other cars in the parking lot. They did this because these expensive cars usually have a GPS tracking device installed in them, which could be hidden anywhere. This GPS device is supposed to be able to determine the car's location in most parts of the world. So wherever the car went, the police would find it unless the device was disabled. Yang issued clear instructions to his cohort of thieves. They were to rendezvous at designated parking lots upon stealing a vehicle. Once parked, the thief would disembark and employ a specialized device to scan for GPS trackers covertly installed within the car. Upon detection, the device would be promptly dislodged and discarded at a remote location. However, there was a potential complication. Some trackers could be activated remotely. In such cases, if the car owner discovered the theft, remotely activated the GPS tracker, and reported the incident to the authorities, the thief would adopt a strategic approach. The stolen vehicle would remain parked for 48 hours. During that time, if undisturbed, it signaled that law enforcement either weren't actively pursuing the vehicle or were unaware of its location. Following this surveillance period, the thief would return, retrieve the vehicle, and proceed with the assurance that pursuit was not imminent. Of course, all of these were Yang's instructions. This man was a genius. His work in military intelligence paid off. If you think it's over here, you still don't understand how the man's mind works. His intelligence is top-notch. Yang ordered Dean to tell the young thieves to bring the car and park it at a distance from the warehouse, meaning on a street or two. The idea was that these young thieves wouldn't know the location of the warehouse. Only Dean and his friend Mario, who were responsible for managing the thieves, knew the location of the warehouse. After the thief carefully positions the car at a safe distance from the warehouse, Dean swoops in to transport it back to the facility. However, before proceeding, Yang implements one final precautionary measure, a test to ensure the absence of any police tailing the vehicle. You might wonder why the need for multiple tests. Well, that's a testament to Yang's razor-sharp intellect. He directs Dean to drive the car in a circular route around the warehouse. Any vehicle following the same circular path behind them is a telltale sign of surveillance. Yang's surveillance strategy is multifaceted. Firstly, they utilize the surveillance cameras mounted on the warehouse to monitor the surrounding streets, watching for any signs of tailing vehicles. Secondly, additional cars are deployed to patrol the area continuously, with occupants on high alert for any suspicious individuals or vehicles that might indicate police or security presence. After Yang feels that the situation is safe and there are no risks, he calls and orders the car to enter the warehouse. This means the layers of protection he put in place for this operation were complex and clearly planned at an intelligence level. After that, the car is now in the warehouse, under the control of Yang's trusted Chinese team, who are all close to him. The Chinese team then prepares the car for shipping. They want it to reach China in the best condition, as if it were a new car. So they run tests on it and make sure everything is in order. If anything needs fixing, they work on it. They might even change the car's locks, reprogram the computer from scratch, and prepare new keys for it. Once the cars are meticulously prepared and deemed in optimal condition, the operation proceeds to the next phase, shipping the vehicles to China. Shipping containers are brought to the warehouse, each capable of accommodating multiple cars in length. Once the cars are loaded into the containers, their weight is measured and fraudulent documentation is crafted, falsely declaring the contents as food items. The quantities listed on the official paperwork correspond precisely to the weight of the cars. Despite being forged, these documents are so meticulously executed that they arouse no suspicion, especially when coupled with the facade of their fake company, designed to resemble a legitimate food distributor. However, Yang is not content to ship the containers directly from the nearby ports, knowing that increased theft operations may prompt heightened police scrutiny. Instead, he opts for a more circuitous route. The containers are first transported to New Jersey, a neighboring state to New York. There, they are transferred from trucks to trains. These trains traverse the breadth of the country, journeying all the way to California, on the opposite coast, the furthest point from New York. Yang's decision is strategic, not solely to evade law enforcement, but also because California's ports, situated on the western edge of America, offer a shorter route to China. It's a clever maneuver that accomplishes two objectives with a single stroke. In California, the containers containing the cars are shipped under the pretext of being food containers. But Yang did one more thing, just to ensure that no one is monitoring his shipments and where they're going. The ship that carries the shipment doesn't go to China, it goes to another destination. But on its way, it meets another cargo ship, and secretly, they transfer the containers of cars to the second ship. This second ship takes the containers to China, and the owners of the second ship know the actual load inside the containers. They know their cars, and they have papers with all the details, the types of vehicles, their number, their price, and everything about them. And that's how Yang ran his gang for years. Over 5 years, Yang and his team stole thousands of cars from New York. The police were puzzled and couldn't catch or find any evidence against them. Yang kept himself completely hidden. Despite the large number of cars and the millions they made, the demand for these cars in China never stopped. The demand kept increasing, and Yang couldn't cover all these orders. So they started targeting additional places to increase the rate of car exports. One of these places was car dealerships. Of course, car dealerships provided an opportunity like no other. You could steal more than one car from them in one go, so Yang ordered Dean and his partner Mario to target car dealerships. Mario went to one of the car dealerships and pretended to be a customer checking out the cars. Mario noticed where the dealership owner kept the car keys, which were in a box fixed to the wall inside the manager's office. A few nights later, under the cloak of darkness, Mario made a return visit to the dealership, well after closing time. With swift precision, he infiltrated the premises, homing in on the manager's office where the keys to a fleet of luxury vehicles were securely housed. Gathering the keys, each one a ticket to high-end luxury, Mario's cohorts awaited his signal outside. With a silent nod, he orchestrated their entry, and within minutes, 7 of them dispersed, each taking a different path. In a mere 3 minutes, the operation was executed flawlessly. Despite the blaring alarm and the automated police notification, Mario and his team had vanished into the night with their newly acquired treasures. However, fate took an unexpected turn for one of the stolen vehicles as it became entangled in an accident. The collision triggered a cascade of events, drawing law enforcement to the scene. Swiftly recognizing the car as stolen, the police launched an investigation. Under interrogation, the apprehended thief succumbed to pressure, divulging crucial information about his partners in crime. He revealed the involvement of Mario and Dean, providing authorities with a pivotal lead to unraveling the intricate web of criminal activity. The police swiftly assembled a surveillance team tasked with tracking Dean, as they had gathered intel, suggesting he was the mastermind behind the operation. Shadowing Dean's movements, the authorities maintained their watchful eye, patiently trailing him. Eventually, Dean unwittingly led them straight to Yang's warehouse. Parking their vehicles at a safe distance, the officers commenced their observation, keen to decipher the activities unfolding within the confines of the warehouse. Unbeknownst to them, however, there were others monitoring the situation. Inside the warehouse, Yang and his associates were clandestinely surveilling the police surveillance, turning the tables on their would-be captors. Recall Chow, Yang's trusted partner, tasked with surveillance. He swiftly detected the investigators' parked vehicle, silently monitoring the warehouse. This oversight indicated the investigators had not anticipated facing off against a former intelligence operative. Yet, when Yang became aware of the situation, he remained composed. In fact, he was more than prepared for such an eventuality. Determined and resolute, the operation had been meticulously crafted to ensure the warehouse could vanish in an instant if necessary. Naturally, the investigators wouldn't move in until later, opting to gather as much information and evidence as possible before making their move. Throughout this period, Yang refrained from introducing any new vehicles into the warehouse. However, the warehouse still housed several cars alongside the tools and equipment essential for their operations. Under constant surveillance, they orchestrated the meticulous removal of all vehicles and tools from the warehouse. Employing trucks, they systematically loaded batches of cars and equipment, maintaining their facade of transporting food, consistent with their purported business operations. Unbeknownst to the police, who awaited tangible evidence, Yang and his crew orchestrated this covert operation while maintaining a watchful eye on the authorities. Thus, they successfully emptied the warehouse of all incriminating items related to their activities. The following day, as the police resumed their surveillance, they noted a conspicuous absence of activity. No comings or goings. No signs of life within the warehouse. Growing impatient, they resolved to raid the premises. Upon entry, they were met with an unsettling sight: an empty warehouse, devoid of any evidence. It was a stark realization that the gang had outwitted them.
Warehouse basically was emptied, and he was gone. And we had no idea who he was, where he went to, or anything.
So, they decided to go back to the person they knew, Dean. At first, they decided to arrest him, but without enough evidence, they decided to go back to surveillance again. The investigators persisted in their surveillance efforts, hoping to trap the entire gang or apprehend as many members as possible. Their primary objective was to uncover the destination of the stolen cars, which continued to elude them. Amid their surveillance of Dean, they obtained court authorization to wiretap his calls. Upon monitoring these conversations, they noted a recurring theme: inquiries regarding the status of surveillance and the timing of potential returns. Dean consistently professed ignorance to these queries. The investigators surmised that these callers were key figures in the operation, individuals who had fled the warehouse undetected. After 6 months of surveillance, a pivotal figure finally contacted Dean. This individual, identified as Kenny, was none other than Yang himself. In coded language, Kenny informed Dean of his return and made a cryptic request for 260. Sensing they were under scrutiny, the investigators suspected Kenny to be the gang's leader. Unbeknownst to them, Yang harbored concerns about phone monitoring and employed coded language in his conversations. He also instructed his associates to use disposable phone numbers to evade detection, complicating the investigators' efforts further. Each gang member regularly changed their phone numbers, presenting a significant challenge for the authorities seeking to track their communications. The key to their breakthrough lay in eavesdropping on the gang members' families. For instance, they tapped Dean's wife's phone, enabling them to track his new numbers whenever he changed devices. Once they identified Dean's latest contact information, they obtained court approval to monitor his communications. Through his conversations with fellow accomplices, they uncovered the phone numbers of other key players. The operation posed myriad challenges, particularly in navigating the legal hurdles of obtaining court permissions. However, the investigators remained steadfast, recognizing the potential payoff of their efforts. This marked the first instance where they began to gain traction against Yang, who had consistently outmaneuvered them. Compounding their advantage was the less vigilant behavior of Yang's Chinese associates, particularly his initial partner, Chow. Lacking the same level of caution, Chow occasionally discussed sensitive matters over the phone, such as dinner plans, inadvertently providing the investigators with valuable leads. They sent a Chinese person to the restaurant that Chow and Yang always went to. For the first time, the investigator gets to observe the elusive figure who had eluded them for years. Positioned undercover within the restaurant, the agent not only surveilled their interactions, but also eavesdropped on their conversations. From this covert vantage point, the agent gleaned vital information, including discussions regarding a prospective new warehouse location. With the newfound knowledge gleaned from their surveillance of the restaurant meeting, the investigators swiftly moved to monitor the identified warehouse. But this time, they employed a different approach, keen to avoid repeating past mistakes. Determined to remain undetected, they eschewed the presence of their own vehicles and minimized police visibility. Instead, they strategically positioned surveillance cameras on the surrounding buildings, affording them comprehensive coverage of the warehouse's every corner. Drawing inspiration from Yang's tactics, they even managed to covertly plant a GPS device on one of the containers en route to the warehouse, enabling them to track the incoming shipment and ascertain the precise destination of the cars. For the first time in the cat-and-mouse game, the balance of power shifted, placing control firmly in the hands of the police. Caught off guard by the meticulous surveillance efforts, Yang found himself outmaneuvered. Undeterred, he persisted in his daily operations, replenishing the warehouse with new cars and devising innovative methods to expand their illicit activities. Among their most cunning strategies was targeting cars in paid parking lots. Typically, these lots boasted attendants who issued tickets upon entry and managed vehicle movements. To accommodate the busy nature of such lots, car owners often entrusted their keys to these attendants, facilitating the maneuvering of vehicles as needed. Mario, Dean's accomplice, struck a deal with one of these attendants, proposing a lucrative offer: $500 for every car we steal. To the attendant, this sum represented a substantial windfall compared to their usual earnings. Seizing the opportunity, the attendant agreed to the arrangement, unwittingly facilitating the theft of numerous vehicles from the parking lots. At the agreed-upon time, the gang would rendezvous with the attendant, taking possession of the keys before incapacitating and restraining him. This ruse ensured that the attendant's cooperation remained undetected. With access secured, they swiftly absconded with a fleet of high-end luxury cars, leaving the parking lots behind. After a while, someone came to the parking lots and saw the guard tied up and lying on the ground, so they called the police. By the time the police arrived, the thieves were already at the warehouse. But wait, we didn't mention that after they stole the cars, they would stop at a distant place and wait for 2 days to make sure no one was following the cars. Unfortunately, with any repeatable job, people tend to get used to it and lose their caution over time. It seemed like this happened with the thieves. They brought all the cars they stole from the parking lots straight to the warehouse without realizing that one of these cars had a GPS tracking device. So, the local police, whom the car owners called, tried to track this signal. One of the police officers arrived at the warehouse in his car and tried to enter. These police officers were not part of the investigation team, so they didn't know about the ongoing investigation. They didn't know that investigators were monitoring this gang. At that moment, as he was about to enter the warehouse, the inside workers suddenly came out running. Indeed, they saw him from the surveillance cameras. When the investigators saw this scene, they knew they had to enter immediately. This was going to be the moment of the gang raid and arrest, with no second chances. They arrested the workers in the warehouse, but Yang, who they knew as Kenny, wasn't there at the time. They knew that if news reached him, he would escape again. Luckily, they had a police unit monitoring his house. Through surveillance of him during the past period, they were able to determine the location of his house. So they had forces monitoring from a distance all the time. When they finally raided the warehouse and arrested the workers inside, the police unit monitoring Kenny had to move and arrest him immediately. And indeed, they arrested him the same night as he was leaving his house. Following intense interrogation, authorities finally uncovered Minjin Yang's true identity, dispelling the alias of Kenny. They delved into his background, revealing his prior service in military intelligence within the Chinese army. Suddenly, the enigmatic figure that had confounded them for years began to make sense. Regrettably, the premature raid prevented investigators from determining the ultimate destination of the stolen cars or their intended buyers. Without this crucial information, the full extent of Yang's illicit activities remained elusive. Ultimately, due to the lack of concrete evidence linking Yang to car theft, he confessed to corruption charges instead. While he didn't physically steal the cars himself, he operated as a purchaser from those who did. Consequently, he received a sentence of just 10 years. Despite his relatively short sentence, Yang's criminal enterprise had amassed staggering profits exceeding $40 million, equivalent to over $75 million today. However, none of these ill-gotten gains could be recovered, as Yang had stashed them away in China beyond the reach of authorities. And here, we have reached the end of our story for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can watch this video. And until a new video, ciao.